Rod Birdsall. Rod's a consultant for All States Materials Group. He's a licensed professional engineer.
I want to start out first by just kind of introducing ultra-thin bonded wearing course and what it is. And bonded wearing course was actually developed in Europe and brought to this country in the early 90s. It was patented. The patents are now all gone. It's used extensively now in the Northeast and throughout the country. So what I wanted to focus on today really is some of the uses and talk about the basics of the material and then get into it. The other thing I wanted to mention, and again I missed yesterday, I don't know whether Jim or some of the other ones mentioned, the work that's going on now in the emulsion ETF and in ASHTO and getting specifications done, and I really credit some of the work that Colin and Derek Niederplant have done. To me, it seems incredible. In my career, we've never had ASHTO accepted specifications for any of the pavement preservation treatments, and it's really finally coming to fruition thanks to a whole lot of efforts by a lot of people, both industry and agencies. This is the basic outline, and again, as Scott said, I'm holding everybody up between 9 months, so I'm going to kind of run through this thing. I was told a long time ago, never volunteer to be the last speaker before lunch or the end of the day, because everybody is just saying, you're boring, get out of here, right? You're late, okay. And as I mentioned, the process has been around for many, many years. The ultra-thin bonded wearing course is a thin overlay with an application, a heavy application of a polymer modified emulsion, and then the original patent called for a gap graded mix. It's laid thin, that's why it's called ultra-thin bonded wearing course. Typically between 5/8 and 3/4 of an inch. In some cases it's a little more than that, depending on the agency and what the use is for. But it's laid with a specialized paver, as you can see there, and I'll give you another picture in a minute. There's really three important components to it. One is the polymer modified emulsion, and there's certain characteristics that are very important for that as far as viscosity in order to be able to spray it. It's readily available through the emulsion manufacturers with the specifications. It's easily transported in conventional equipment. The mix itself is produced in a hot mix plant, and it's produced with various types of binders, depending on the road volume and the conditions. And a lot of agencies now are using not only the conventional PG grades, but either polymer modified or asphalt rubber modified or whatever, depending on what the conditions are and what they want to use. The mix itself is produced in hot mix plants. Some of the mix plants are very adaptable because of the gradation, and some it's a little bit more difficult. And the concept really is, with the heavy emulsion, is the wicking effect, and that's where we get the bonding and the long-term waterproofing and performance really comes in one of the keys. It's placed with a specialized paver, which is very critical. And one of the advantages of that is really two things. One is heavier application that you can put down because you don't have to worry about the tracking. And number two, the design of the paver and the spray bar system allows for what we term the material to be unmolested or undisturbed as the paver goes across. If you do conventional tack coats with a truck, as we all know, then the equipment drives through it. And with the bonded wearing course, that doesn't happen. This is kind of a schematic of actually of a cross section of what it really looks like, and you can see in the slide the bottom roughly 1/3 to 1/2. The voids are totally filled, so that's the waterproofing impact that comes from it. This is the typical paver. It's a Vogeli paver. There were Midland pavers on the markets, and almost all of it exclusively around the country and the world are using the Vogelis because of the design and their capabilities. Talk a little bit about the application rates. To me, that's what makes it so much different than when we compare it to conventional thin overlays and tack coat, we're able to lay it pretty thin because of the mix design that's used, but more importantly, the liquid application. So here's a little chart that basically goes through the difference between the conventional thin overlay, where we use a conventional tack coat that's typically put down between 3/100 and 1/10 of a gallon. And when we look at what we do with the bonded wearing course, we're typically looking at 0.2 is kind of the standard, plus or minus 0.2. And that's a function of the pavement condition, if it's very dense or open graded overlay or whatever. And I've actually seen it go even more than those extremes if you really look at what you're doing.
Yeah.
So the point is the residual is what you really look at. And if we look at diluted tack coat, which is typically used for conventional overlays, we're really only talking about something around less than 0.05 of a gallon a square yard of residue as compared with the bonded wearing course having somewhere between 0.12 and 0.15. So that makes a big difference. You're essentially getting about 4 to 5 times more liquid to waterproof, seal, and bond the pavement down. So that's the big difference. One of the reasons I throw this slide up is I wasn't here yesterday because I had the wonderful opportunity to go with my son to the Final Four. Is anybody here from Virginia? If you are, congratulations. We saw 3 incredible basketball games. And I threw the slide up for a reason. This was the tip-off for the final game. And you really step back and think about successful projects and what makes a project work. And it's really teamwork. And it's teamwork. And I commend every team that was there with what they did, the way they played. I mean, as I said, were incredible games. And I throw that up because what I want to talk about now is project selections and how we got there. And it's really a combination of things with both as industry and agencies collectively working together to make things happen and so that we get successful work. I'd start out by saying that when we look at project selection, certainly one of the keys is program planning and communication. And my point with this and also with the scope development and reach is it's important for industry to know what agencies are thinking. We have equipment and we have equipment capabilities and we have scheduling issues and so forth. The more in advance that there's communications between agencies and industry with what your programs are, the easier or the better it is for us to be geared up. If all of a sudden there's a whole lot of work that's going on and the equipment or labor or whatever is not available, is a major issue, especially if we ever get a highway bill, which someday I hope we do, that has proper funding. The other one, the second point, is really what I would call the development or the reach. We see a lot of pavement preservation projects now. They get a lot of secondary things wrapped into them. And if we look at, and it doesn't matter whether it's chip seals or microsurfacing or the bonded wearing course, when we get a lot of secondary things in, and I've seen, with some of the accessibility things and sidewalks and bridge things, the more complicated it is, the more difficult it is. So I would encourage you, if you can keep the pavement preservation treatments pretty much to themselves, it's a much more efficient, and I think you will wind up with a whole lot better project when it's all done. We certainly always talk about good to fair pavement conditions. The selection or the type of binder that you use or whatever is a function also of the traffic and the type of traffic. We need the required prep work. There's a big difference between day and night work, and as we all know, with the interstates and the population in the urban areas today, there is more and more night work, and that takes a lot more coordination with things going on. As I mentioned before, the selection of conventional versus PMA, and I'll show you some slides later of some of the projects that we've done, and I know there'll be some discussions by some of the state agencies later with their use of some of the different binders to give better performance. And of course, the other thing is coordination with other operations, and that's why I go back to the development of the scope and reach. That really plays into that. Kind of the standard paving issues that go on. From preparation before we do the paving, these are the pretty much the what everybody does, and I'll just kind of skip over those. But certainly, the prep work, cleaning and crack filling, and having that done in a timely manner before the crew shows up is really important if it's a separate contract. And obviously, the pavement needs to be cleaned and leveled and shimmed and so forth. Standard construction practices for hot mix, I mean, that's the easiest way to describe it. We need to have the proper equipment and type for sure. We need trained and experienced crews, and I think there's been a lot of work being done both within the industry and through the National Center with some of the training programs that have been developed and certifications that are really, really important for all of the treatment processes. There's standard industry hot mix practices, and I think we all are pretty familiar with those, and because of time I don't want to go into them. Consistent material head in the front of the screed. I mean, if we really look at the paver, if we want to get ride, there's a lot of things that relate to ride. And constant paving speed is important. The amount of head of the mix in front of the screed is important. Because as that varies up or down, the dynamics of the screed tends to go up and down. So if we really want to look at ride, which is being more and more looked at in the industry, the consistent material and the consistent paving speed are so important to overall quantities. The emulsion application obviously is critical, and I'll talk about that here in another minute. And there's rolling techniques. You're not really compacting, you're embedding. And of course, we have the seasonal limitations. QA practices are extremely important, and I would say that it should be a requirement. If we look at the pre-project quality control plan, I mean, every project should have a plan, and it should include the material sampling and testing, material certifications, both the hot mix, the liquids, so forth. We need agency on-site inspection, and we also need to verify quantities, which again I'll show you here in a second. These are the real key to a QC plan, and anybody doing this kind of work or any of the preservation treatments should develop a QC plan, and it should be discussed with the agency prior to commencing. But really look at the project requirements, the materials certification. We've really moved, as Bobby pointed out earlier, with Asphalt, or with all states in looking at having a resource-approved lab so that we can do our own designs and certify the binders, the mixes, and so forth. Equipment calibration is extremely important. How you're going to do it, what process you're going to use. There are standard ASTM, and there'll be ASHTO. Personnel qualifications, and again, I'd reiterate some of the stuff that's going on at the National Center when developing pre-qualifications for employees and training and understanding the construction process. Field monitoring, again, I think as an industry, we all say that the agency people need to know as much about what we do as we ourselves in industry know in order for inspectors to understand what's happening. And we also, within a quality control plan, we all have to admit sometimes things don't work the way we think they are. What are you going to do if things don't work? And again, that's an important part of a QC plan. How do you rectify it? How do you get back going again? This is just kind of a simple way of verifying. One of the things with the spray paver, because of the bar under the paver, sometimes it's very, very difficult, and it takes an inspector to really pay attention of what the spray bar is doing to make sure there's no clogged nozzles, which is important. But I would encourage you to use this a little example of, at the end of the day, or at some time during the day to look at the tons of material and divided by the square yards to figure out what your yields are. And at the same time, you can do the same thing with emulsions. And now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly rattle through some examples here, and I'm going to talk as we go. And these are some projects that we've been involved with, and this is one that was actually done in New Hampshire, as you can see, in 2014, and then you can see what it looked like later on. Here's the same project 5 years later. This picture was just taken within the last week. Here's a project that was done in Massachusetts, and I think Ed's going to talk more about this, so I couldn't skip through it, but it was actually placed in 08, still performing very well on I-295. Kind of whipping through here, and I think Ed's going to talk about Route 3, which is a rather interesting project where it was an overlay on a road. There was 3 different binders used: conventional asphalt rubber, and polymer modified. And I picked this one slide really because if you the treatment on the shoulders, and this happens a lot of times with thin overlays, as we ignore some of the things that are done with shoulders. And actually on this project there were several different treatments that were placed on the shoulders with fog seals in various ways, or various products, looking at how do we preserve our shoulders economically, and I'll let Ed talk about that later. So again, I want to finish. This is the hoopla at the end of the game on Monday night, which was incredible, absolutely incredible. And I just want to finish by saying that it's really communication, it's cooperation, both with us and industry and with agencies, in picking the right treatment and understanding the materials, the process, the things that we need to do, and to address any issues there are both before and as they occur. And more importantly, is to document and communicate, the things that we do. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, everybody, for your interest in Bender Rain Course.
Yeah, thanks, Rod.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.